Remember when you were a kid and thought you knew everything about dinosaurs? You were wrong. Turns out Hollywood, museums, and even your science teacher have been feeding you lies your entire life. From T-Rex having tiny useless arms to raptors being the size of buildings, almost nothing you think you know is actually true. Today, I'm exposing 40 of the biggest dinosaur myths that fooled billions of people. And trust me, number 23 is going to blow your mind. 1. Let's kick this off with probably the most disrespected dinosaur of all time. Everyone loves making fun of T-Rex for having those pathetic little arms, right? All the memes about it not being able to do push-ups or clap when it's excited. Here's the problem with that joke. Those arms could literally destroy you. Scientists recently discovered that each arm had enough muscle density to curl over 400 pounds. 400 pounds. That's basically a full-grown lion. These weren't weak. They were precision weapons designed to grip struggling prey while that massive jaw finished the job. The arms were short because they didn't need to be long. T-Rex's entire hunting strategy was built around its bite force, which was strong enough to crush bone. Those arms just held dinner in place. So next time you see a T-Rex arm meme, just remember it could probably rip your car door off without breaking a sweat. 2. Now here's one that blew my mind when I found out. You know those Velociraptors from Jurassic Park? The 6-foot-tall nightmare monsters that hunted in packs and opened doors? Yeah, real Velociraptors were the size of turkeys. I'm talking 2 feet tall, maybe 30 pounds max. You could literally drop-kick one across your backyard. The movies knew this, by the way. They just didn't care, because nobody's scared of a killer turkey. There actually were larger raptors that matched the movie size, called Utah raptor, but those were a completely different species. The filmmakers basically took the Velociraptor name, slapped it on a bigger dinosaur, and hoped nobody would notice. And for decades, it worked. Millions of people grew up terrified of an animal that was basically an angry chicken with claws. Don't get me wrong, a pack of them could still mess you up, but they weren't the tactical murder machines Hollywood sold us. 3. While we're destroying childhood memories, let's talk about size in general. Everyone pictures dinosaurs as these massive building-sized monsters, right? Except the smallest dinosaur ever found is literally smaller than your thumb. The bee hummingbird is technically a dinosaur, and it weighs less than a penny. But okay, maybe you're thinking that doesn't count because it's a bird. Fine. Let's talk about Microraptor, which was about the size of a crow and weighed 2 pounds. You could fit it in your backpack. There were dozens of species smaller than a cat. So why does everyone think all dinosaurs were giants? Preservation bias. Big bones survive millions of years underground way. Better than tiny, delicate bones. We're probably missing thousands of small species simply because their skeletons didn't make it. Every time we picture the dinosaur era as just massive creatures, we're forgetting an entire ecosystem of pint-sized dinosaurs that definitely existed, but left almost no trace. 4. Here's something that's going to mess with your head. Dinosaurs never actually went extinct. I know what you're thinking, but hear me out. Every single bird you see today, from pigeons to eagles to that annoying seagull that stole your fries, is a direct descendant of dinosaurs. They are dinosaurs, just the ones that survived. When that asteroid hit 66 million years ago, it only killed the non-flying dinosaurs. The ones that could fly adapted and evolved into modern birds. So technically, chickens are dinosaurs, which means every time you eat chicken nuggets, you're eating dinosaur meat. This also completely destroys the myth that dinosaurs were scaly like crocodiles because their closest living relatives are covered in feathers. Some dinosaurs had scales, some had feathers, and some had this weird mix of both. Nature didn't pick a side, it just went absolutely wild with design options. 5. Speaking of Jurassic Park lies, let's address the dumbest survival advice ever given in cinema history. Don't move. It can't see us if we don't move. If you actually tried this with a real T-Rex, you'd be dead in seconds. T-Rex had the largest eyes of any land predator in history, roughly the size of softballs. Its vision was estimated to be 13 times sharper than human vision, with forward-facing eyes that gave it incredible depth perception. If you were standing in front of a T-Rex, it was seeing you whether you moved or not. Movement had nothing to do with it. This myth has probably convinced thousands of people they could survive a predator encounter by freezing, which is genuinely dangerous advice. The real strategy would have been running, hiding, or praying it already ate, because standing still wasn't doing anything except making you an easier target. 6. Now let's talk about something nobody questions. Pterodactyls were dinosaurs, right? Wrong. They weren't dinosaurs at all. Pterodactyl isn't even the correct name. That's one specific species of a larger group called pterosaurs, which were flying reptiles that lived alongside dinosaurs but belonged to a completely separate family tree. Same goes for all those sea dinosaurs in documentaries. Plesiosaurs, mosasaurs, ichthyosaurs. None of them were dinosaurs either. By definition, dinosaurs were strictly land animals. There were 0 dinosaurs in the ocean and 0 flying dinosaurs. But that doesn't sound as exciting, so everyone just lumps them together and hopes nobody notices. It's like calling dolphins fish just because they live in water. Scientifically inaccurate, but convenient for storytelling. 7. Here's a myth that cinema absolutely refuses to let go of. Every dinosaur movie has them. Roaring like lions or tigers, these deep, terrifying monster sounds that echo across the landscape. Except there's 0 evidence dinosaurs could roar at all. Roaring requires specific vocal anatomy that mammals have, but reptiles and birds don't. Birds use a vocal organ called a syrinx, which produces squawks, honks, and whistles, not roars. Large dinosaurs probably made deep booming sounds using air sacs, similar to cassowaries. Others likely hissed, clicked, or made closed-mouth rumbles. But that iconic T-Rex roar from Jurassic Park, that's literally a mix of elephant, tiger, and alligator sounds edited together. Real dinosaurs probably sounded way stranger and way less epic than Hollywood wants you to believe. Imagine a giant chicken crossed with a foghorn. That's probably closer to reality. 8. Let's shatter another classic image. Remember those old dinosaur books showing them dragging their tails on the ground like heavy dead weight? Completely false. We found thousands of dinosaur trackways preserved in ancient mud, and you know what's consistently missing? Tail drag marks. Dinosaurs held their tails up high for balance, using them as counterweights to their massive heads and bodies. This applies to everything from Stegosaurus to T-Rex to long-necked sauropods. Tails were active, muscular structures, not useless appendages scraping dirt. We figured this out decades ago, but the dragging tail image was so burned into pop culture that it took forever to correct. Even some modern movies still get it wrong. Real dinosaurs were athletic and dynamic, not sluggish creatures leaving trenches everywhere they walked. 9. Now this one's embarrassing for science. For over a century, we told everyone Brontosaurus never existed, that it was just a mistake made during the Bone Wars when paleontologists were rushing to discover new species. Museums removed it from displays, textbooks deleted it, and an entire generation grew up learning Brontosaurus was fake. Then, in 2015, scientists reviewed all the evidence and officially brought Brontosaurus back. Turns out it was a legitimate species after all, different enough from Apatosaurus to deserve its own classification. So we spent 100 years telling people they were wrong, then had to admit we were actually wrong about them being wrong. If you grew up being told Brontosaurus was a myth, congratulations, you got lied to twice. Science is messy sometimes, and this was one of our biggest blunders. 10. Here's one that surprises people. T-Rex wasn't even the biggest carnivorous dinosaur. That title belongs to Spinosaurus, which reached 50 feet long and weighed over 7 tons. There's also Giganotosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus, both comparable to T-Rex in size. So why does T-Rex get all the fame, location, and timing? It lived in North America where most paleontology research happened, and it was one of the last dinosaurs before the extinction event, making it iconic. But the king of dinosaurs. Title is more about cultural impact than actual scientific dominance. Plenty of predators were just as terrifying. We just didn't find them first, or give them cool movies. 11. Let's talk about intelligence, because everyone assumes dinosaurs were stupid. Small brain, big body equals dumb, right? Not even close. Brain size doesn't directly correlate with intelligence. Birds are living dinosaurs, and some of them are incredibly smart. Crows can solve complex puzzles, parrots can learn language, and ravens can plan for the future. Some dinosaurs, particularly troodontids, had relatively large brains for their size and were probably quite clever. Even dumb dinosaurs like Stegosaurus survived for millions of years, which requires effective strategies for finding food, avoiding predators, and reproducing. If dinosaurs were so stupid, they wouldn't have dominated Earth for 165 million years. Humans have only been around for 300,000 years. We're basically toddlers compared to their legacy. 12. Here's something nobody tells you. When you look at a dinosaur skeleton in a museum, you're not actually looking at bones. You're looking at rocks. Over millions of years, the original bone material gets completely replaced by minerals through a process called permineralization. Water seeps into the bone, deposits minerals like silica, and gradually replaces the organic material atom by atom. What's left is a stone replica that perfectly preserves the shape, but contains zero original bone. It's basically a fossil-shaped rock that remembers being a bone. So every T-Rex skeleton you've ever seen is actually a sculpture carved by nature over millions of years. The actual biological material is long gone. 13. Now let's address the coordinated pack hunting myth. Jurassic Park made velociraptors look like Navy SEALs, using tactical flanking maneuvers and communicating strategies. There's no evidence dinosaurs hunted with that level of coordination. Most proof of pack hunting comes from finding multiple predator fossils near prey remains. But that doesn't mean teamwork. Modern Komodo dragons will swarm a carcass together, but they're not coordinating. They're competing for food. Same with crocodiles. Raptors probably engaged in mob feeding, where multiple individuals attack the same target out of opportunity, not strategy. True pack hunting like wolves requires complex social structures we have no proof dinosaurs possessed. Could some species have been more social than others? Sure. But the tactical genius raptors from movies? Pure Hollywood fiction. 14. Let's destroy a classic playground fact. Stegosaurus did not have a second brain in its butt. This myth refuses to die, but it's completely false. The idea came from scientists discovering an enlarged area in the spinal cord near the hips, which is just a nerve cluster for controlling back legs and tail. Every animal with a spine has these, including humans. It's not a brain, it's nerve coordination. Yes, Stegosaurus had a walnut-sized brain for a 5-ton body, but it didn't need a backup computer to function. Plenty of successful animals have small brains relative to body size. Brain-to-body ratio isn't everything. Stegosaurus survived for millions of years with one regular brain, so clearly it worked fine. Every diagram showing a butt brain is scientifically inaccurate, yet it's still taught in schools. That's how hard myths are to kill. 15. Here's one that'll change how you think about time. T-Rex and Stegosaurus never met. In fact, Stegosaurus went extinct about 80 million years before T-Rex even evolved. Humans actually live closer in time to T-Rex, 66 million years, than T-Rex did to Stegosaurus, 145 million years. Dinosaurs ruled Earth for over 165 million years, which is such an incomprehensibly long period that most of your favorite species from different eras never crossed paths. Triceratops and Brachiosaurus, different worlds. Allosaurus and Ankylosaurus, wrong time periods. The Jurassic Park mashup of every cool dinosaur existing together is like making a movie where cavemen ride mammoths while fighting Roman soldiers. Technically, they're all humans and extinct animals, but the timeline makes zero sense. 16. Let's talk about those epic battles everyone imagines. Triceratops charging at T-Rex like a rhino, horns aimed to gore its enemy. Probably didn't happen like that. Biomechanical studies show Triceratops's neck and spine couldn't absorb the impact of a full-speed charge without serious injury. Those horns were likely used more for display and wrestling other Triceratops over mates, similar to how deer lock antlers. When facing predators, Triceratops probably stood its ground and used its horns defensively, slashing and jabbing rather than charging. It didn't need to move fast because it was already a walking tank. Those horns could still inflict serious damage, but the Hollywood stampede image is probably exaggerated. Real fights were more about intimidation and defensive stands than epic collision courses. 17. Here's a fun fact about weapons. Ankylosaurus had that massive tail club, and everyone imagines it swinging like a wrecking ball to shatter T-Rex leg bones in one hit. Reality check. While the tail could deliver a painful blow, it probably wasn't breaking bones left and right. T-Rex leg bones were incredibly thick and reinforced to support its weight. Breaking one would require multiple perfect hits. More realistically, Ankylosaurus used its club as a deterrent, making itself too dangerous to be worth the effort. It's like the difference between hitting someone with a bat and actually breaking their femur. Both hurt, but one is way harder than movies make it seem. That tail club was definitely a weapon, just not the instant bone crusher pop culture portrays. 18. Now let's talk about climate. Every dinosaur movie shows them in hot, humid jungles with massive ferns everywhere. While some lived in tropical forests, many inhabited deserts, plains, swamps, and even polar regions. During the Mesozoic era, Antarctica wasn't frozen. It was a temperate forest full of dinosaurs. We've found fossils in Alaska, proving some species lived through months of darkness and cold temperatures. Others adapted to arid desert environments. The jungle aesthetic is purely Hollywood because it looks dramatic and justifies putting giant plants everywhere. Real dinosaurs lived in nearly every climate and biome Earth offered. From snowy forests to dry savannas, these animals were incredibly adaptable. The universal jungle setting is just lazy set design that became standard. 19. Here's something that sounds fake but isn't. Some mammals actually ate dinosaurs. Meet Repenomamus, a badger-sized mammal from 130 million years ago. We know it ate dinosaurs because one fossil was found with a baby Psittacosaurus in its stomach. Another fossil shows a Repenomamus mid-attack, latched onto a Psittacosaurus's ribcage going for the kill. This completely destroys the myth that mammals were tiny, helpless creatures hiding in holes while dinosaurs ruled. Sure, most mammals were small, but some were already hunting dinosaurs long before we evolved and turned them into nuggets. Were mammals dominant? No, but they definitely weren't cowering in fear 24/7 like textbooks suggest. Nature's always been brutal regardless of who's on top. 20. Let's address the extinction timeline because everyone thinks the asteroid killed all dinosaurs instantly. It didn't work like that. While the impact was catastrophic, the extinction took time. The asteroid triggered wildfires, blocked the sun with debris, caused acid rain, and turned Earth into an apocalypse. But dinosaurs didn't vanish overnight. It probably took decades, possibly thousands of years for the last ones to die out. Similar to how most mammoths went extinct 10,000 years ago, but a small group survived on Wrangel Island until 4,000 years ago, when the pyramids were being built. The same could have happened with dinosaurs. Isolated populations might have clung on in remote areas before eventually dying from starvation, disease, or genetic collapse. The extinction was gradual, not instantaneous. 21. Here's something that puts things in perspective. That asteroid extinction wasn't even Earth's worst extinction event. The Permian-Triassic extinction, called the Great Dying, happened 252 million years ago and wiped out 96% of all marine species and 70% of land vertebrates. The dinosaur extinction only killed about 75% of species. The Permian event was so devastating it took millions of years for life to recover. It was likely caused by massive volcanic eruptions in Siberia, releasing insane amounts of greenhouse gases, cooking the planet and acidifying the oceans. So as apocalyptic as the asteroid was, Earth has survived way worse. Life is surprisingly resilient, even when facing planetary disasters that seem impossible to overcome. 22. Now let's talk about something surprisingly common. Dinosaur fossils aren't nearly as rare as you'd think. There are places like the Hell Creek Formation where you can walk around for 20 minutes and find a fossil. But here's the catch. Finding a complete skeleton is the rare part. When most dinosaurs died, they got scavenged, scattered by floods, or crushed by geological pressure over millions of years. Finding one that died in the perfect spot, got buried quickly, stayed intact, and eventually got exposed for discovery is the miracle. Even the fossils we have are embarrassingly incomplete. Scientists have written entire papers on species we've only found one bone from. That famous T-Rex skeleton you saw in a museum? It's probably only 70% complete, with the rest being educated guesses and casts from other specimens. 23. Here's one that'll blow your mind. We've only discovered maybe 1% of all dinosaur species that ever existed. Scientists estimate there were 1,500 to 2,000 dinosaur genera, and we've found around 1,000 species total. Most will never be discovered because fossilization is ridiculously rare. An animal has to die in the exact right conditions, get buried quickly, avoid being disturbed for millions of years, and then be in a spot where humans eventually dig. The odds are astronomically low. For every fossil we find, millions of organisms decayed without leaving a trace. Somewhere under cities, oceans, or mountains are countless undiscovered species we'll never know existed. Every fossil discovery is basically winning the lottery. The dinosaur family tree is way bigger than we'll ever prove. 24. Let's talk about what dinosaurs actually sounded like, because we covered what they didn't sound like earlier. We have exactly one dinosaur whose sound we can recreate, Parasaurolophus. That giant crest on its head was hollow and filled with tubes. Scientists 3D modeled it, pushed air through, and it sounded like an air horn. We're pretty confident about this one because the physics checks out. For every other dinosaur, we're basically guessing based on their closest living relatives. Large dinosaurs probably made deep booming sounds using air sacs. Small ones might have chirped or whistled. Some could have hissed like crocodiles. But that diverse soundscape of roars, bellows, and screams in documentaries? Totally invented. Real dinosaur sounds were probably way stranger and less cinematic than we imagine. 25. Here's something about eggs that surprises people. Even massive sauropods, the largest animals to ever walk on land, laid eggs only about basketball-sized, maybe slightly bigger. Why so small compared to the adult? Physics. Eggshells need to be porous for oxygen but strong enough to support weight. If eggs get too big, the shell becomes either too thick for the baby to break out or too thin and collapses under its own weight. There's a physical limit to how large eggs can be. The largest eggs ever found belonged to elephant birds, which weren't even dinosaurs. Dinosaur babies were born tiny and grew rapidly after hatching, similar to modern crocodiles and birds. Those giant eggs in Jurassic Park? Scientifically impossible. Real dinosaur eggs were impressive but not beach ball-sized props. 26. Now let's talk about cold-blooded versus warm-blooded, because this one's still debated. For decades, everyone assumed dinosaurs were cold-blooded like reptiles, needing to bask in the sun to function. That's why old movies show them moving sluggishly. Except all evidence points to most dinosaurs being warm-blooded or mesothermic, somewhere in between. Their bone structure shows growth patterns similar to mammals and birds, not reptiles. Large dinosaurs couldn't function as cold-blooded creatures because they'd overheat from their own body mass. Small, active predators like Velociraptor needed constant energy to hunt, which cold-blooded metabolism couldn't support. The sluggish, sunbathing dinosaur image is outdated science. Real dinosaurs were energetic, active animals built for high performance, not lazy reptiles waiting for warmth. 27. Here's something about herbivores that people get wrong. Plant eaters are portrayed as gentle, peaceful creatures running from predators. That's adorable but completely inaccurate. Herbivore dinosaurs were often the most dangerous animals in their ecosystems. Triceratops had horns and a beak that could tear flesh. Ankylosaurus was a walking fortress with a club tail. Stegosaurus had thagomizer spikes that could impale predators. Even gentle sauropods could crush anything with one step or whip their tails like bullwhips. Modern herbivores like hippos kill more humans than lions do. Herbivores don't survive by being nice. They survive by being too dangerous to attack. Dinosaurs were the same. Predators thought twice before messing with certain herbivores because the injury risk wasn't worth the meal. 28. Let's destroy another Jurassic Park classic. Dilophosaurus was not small, didn't have a frill, and definitely didn't spit venom. Real Dilophosaurus was about 20 feet long and weighed 900 pounds, making it one of the largest predators of its time. There's zero evidence for a frill or venom. Scientists have found no venom delivery system in its skull, and even modern venomous reptiles don't spit like that. The filmmakers completely invented these features to make it more interesting and differentiate it from other predators in the movie. Michael Crichton admitted he made it up. So the real Dilophosaurus was a large, straightforward predator that relied on size and teeth, not party tricks. Hollywood took a perfectly terrifying dinosaur and turned it into a fictional gimmick monster. 29. Here's one about water. For years, scientists thought long-necked sauropods had to live in water because their bodies were too massive to support on land. Old illustrations show them wading in lakes using their necks like snorkels. This is hilariously wrong on multiple levels. First, water pressure at those depths would have collapsed their lungs instantly. Their nostrils were on top of their heads, not because they were snorkels, but because that's just their skull structure. Biomechanical studies proved these dinosaurs were perfectly capable of walking on land. Their leg bones were strong enough, their body structure was optimized for it. Some may have waded occasionally like elephants, but they weren't aquatic creatures. They were land-based herbivores munching on trees, not swimming around playing submarine. 30. Now let's talk about Spinosaurus, because we got this one spectacularly wrong for decades. For years, it was depicted standing upright on two legs like other theropods. Then, in 2014, new fossils revealed we had it completely backwards. Spinosaurus had short hind legs, long arms, and a paddle-shaped tail built for swimming. It probably spent much time on all fours or in water, more like a crocodile than T-Rex. Its sail might have been for display, temperature regulation, or fat storage. The Hollywood image of it walking around on land fighting other predators? Inaccurate. Spinosaurus was semi-aquatic, hunting fish near rivers. It was the first confirmed swimming dinosaur we found. This discovery completely changed our understanding of theropod diversity. Not all were land hunters. Some adapted to aquatic lifestyles. 31. Here's something about periods that confuses people. The Jurassic period wasn't even peak dinosaur time. The Cretaceous period had way more diversity. The Jurassic had icons like Brachiosaurus, Allosaurus, and Stegosaurus. But the Cretaceous had T-Rex, Triceratops, Velociraptor, Spinosaurus, and countless others. By the Cretaceous, dinosaurs had evolved into specialized forms filling nearly every ecological niche. The Jurassic was important for establishing major dinosaur groups, but the Cretaceous was when they truly dominated. So, Jurassic Park should technically be Cretaceous Park, but that doesn't sound as good. The name stuck because of marketing, not scientific accuracy. Most of your favorite dinosaurs are actually from the Cretaceous, not Jurassic. 32. Let's talk about coprolites, which is fossilized poop. Sounds like a joke, but they're incredibly valuable. Coprolites reveal what dinosaurs ate, how they digested, what parasites they had, and details about gut bacteria. One famous T-Rex coprolite contained crushed bone fragments, proving it ate bone and all, not just meat. Others contain plant material showing which species herbivores preferred. Some even have fossilized dung beetles, giving insight into ancient ecosystems. Chemical analysis can determine diet, health, and seasonal eating patterns. Coprolites are windows into daily dinosaur life that bones never provide. Museums collect them, scientists study them, and they've solved mysteries skeletons alone couldn't. Never underestimate the scientific value of ancient poop. It's literal gold for paleontologists. 33. Here's something about skin that movies get wrong. Movie dinosaurs have smooth, clean CGI skin, but real dinosaur skin was way more textured and irregular. Fossilized skin impressions show various size scales, bumps, wrinkles, and weird patterns. Some had armored scutes, others had tubercles. Feathered species had complex plumage with different feather types on different body parts. Dinosaur skin wasn't uniform. It varied based on function, like how elephants have different textures on different areas. Some parts were heavily armored, others thin and flexible. Colors are mostly speculative, but we've found pigment cells suggesting reddish-brown, black, and iridescent sheens. Real dinosaurs would have looked less clean than Hollywood versions, more like actual animals with imperfect functional skin adapted for survival. 34. Now let's talk about Archaeopteryx, the famous first bird. Except it wasn't the first bird, and might not even be a bird. We've discovered earlier species like Orornis and Anchiornis that predate it and show bird-like features. The classification is messy because the line between feathered dinosaur and early bird is incredibly blurry. Some scientists argue Archaeopteryx is just a feathered dinosaur that could glide. Others say it's an early bird. The debate continues. What we know is bird evolution wasn't a straight line with one first bird. It was a gradual transition over millions of years with tons of overlap and intermediate species. Archaeopteryx is important, but calling it the first bird oversimplifies a complex evolutionary story. It's more like one snapshot in a long process. 35. Here's one about speed that action movies love exaggerating. Could you outrun a T-Rex? Probably not. Estimates put its top speed between 12 to 25 mph depending on the study. Even at the lower end, that's faster than most humans can sprint. Usain Bolt hits 27 mph, and he's the fastest human ever. Average people max out around 15 mph for short bursts. Meanwhile, T-Rex had a stride length of about 15 feet. One step for it equals several steps for you. Could you outrun one over long distance? Maybe, because T-Rex probably couldn't maintain top speed due to its weight. But in a sudden chase, you're done. Your best strategy would be obstacles, rough terrain, or hoping it recently ate. Running in a straight line probably wasn't saving anyone. 36. Let's talk about fossils and rarity. Fossilization is absurdly uncommon. For every organism that becomes a fossil, millions decay without leaving a trace. You need perfect conditions, rapid burial, the right chemicals, geological stability for millions of years, and eventual exposure. Most animals die in places where their bodies get eaten, decomposed, or destroyed by erosion. Even when fossilization starts, earthquakes or volcanic activity can destroy fossils before discovery. Scientists estimate less than 0.01% of all organisms that ever lived left any fossil record. When you see a dinosaur skeleton in a museum, you're looking at a 1 in a billion miracle of preservation, timing, and luck. Most life that existed is lost forever. Every fossil represents something extraordinary. 37. Here's something about enemies that's exaggerated. Hollywood loves showing T-Rex and Triceratops as eternal rivals locked in endless battle. There is evidence they interacted since we found Triceratops bones with T-Rex tooth marks. But the idea they constantly fought is overblown. T-Rex was opportunistic, hunting whatever was available and scavenging when possible. Triceratops was probably on the menu, but so was everything else. They weren't personal enemies having grudges. They were animals in the same ecosystem occasionally crossing paths. Sometimes T-Rex killed Triceratops, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes Triceratops defended itself successfully, sometimes it didn't. Nature doesn't have movie narratives. These were just animals trying to survive, not characters in a rivalry storyline. 38. Now here's something about variety. Compsognathus held the record as smallest dinosaur for decades, roughly chicken-sized. Then we found smaller ones. Parvicursor was sparrow-sized. Epidexipteryx wasn't much bigger. The absolute tiniest is debated, but Oculodentavis was literally bee hummingbird-sized, weighing less than a quarter. There's debate whether it's actually a dinosaur or a weird lizard, but the point stands. We keep finding smaller species, and there's probably tinier ones we haven't discovered because their bones rarely fossilize. Compsognathus was definitely small, but calling it the smallest is outdated. The dinosaur size spectrum ranges from hummingbird to building, with incredible diversity in between. Most of that diversity is probably still undiscovered. 39. Finally, let's address the dream everyone has. Will we ever clone dinosaurs? With current technology, basically impossible. DNA degrades rapidly after death. Even in perfect conditions, it's unreadable after a few million years. The oldest DNA ever recovered is about 2 million years old from a mammoth. Dinosaurs went extinct 66 million years ago. The DNA is completely destroyed. What about mosquitoes in amber? Nope. Amber preserves shapes, but DNA still degrades. Scientists have tried extracting DNA from amber-preserved insects and found nothing usable. Could we engineer something dinosaur-like by reverse engineering bird DNA? Maybe, but it wouldn't be a true dinosaur, just a genetically modified bird. We could create something with teeth and a tail, but it'd still be fundamentally a bird. Will we see living dinosaurs? Almost certainly not, but we'll keep finding fossils and learning, which honestly is pretty incredible. 40. Here's something that completely changes how we picture the Mesozoic world. Grass didn't exist during most of the dinosaur era. That's right, no grass. Those wide-open plains you see in every dinosaur documentary with herds grazing on grasslands? Totally wrong. Grass didn't evolve until the very end of the Cretaceous period, just before dinosaurs went extinct, and it didn't become widespread until millions of years after they were gone. So what covered the ground instead? Ferns, mosses, horsetails, and low-growing plants. The landscape looked completely alien compared to modern savannas. When you picture a T-Rex or Triceratops walking through their world, forget the grassy fields. They were stomping through dense fern prairies and ancient plant life that would look strange to us today. Every movie that shows dinosaurs munching grass or walking through grassy meadows is showing you a world that didn't exist yet. The classic grassland ecosystem we know today is actually a post-dinosaur invention. So there you have it. 40 dinosaur myths completely obliterated. If you actually made it to the end, you're now officially smarter about dinosaurs than most people on this planet. The wildest part is, we're still discovering new things every single year that change what we thought we knew. Science is constantly evolving, which means some facts I just told you might get updated in a few years. That's how this works. If this video broke your brain, smash that like button. Subscribe for more content that destroys everything you learned in school, and drop a comment telling me which myth shocked you the most. Seriously, I read every single one. I'll catch you in the next video.